Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an airline pilot, and welcome on our tutorial series on how to use airport charts. In this series we are going to have a look at charts from the pilot's perspective, meaning that we will focus on the types of information that you really need and where to find it. We are also going to have a look at the two different charts providers available to us in flight simulation, which is of course Jeppesen, which is available through the Navigraph subscription, and we are going to also have a look at the Lido charts available to you through Flight Simulator 2024. Since Jeppesen covers a little bit more airports, as it also covers the executive branch, while Lido is focused on the airline operations, we are going to start with Jeppesen. And while we have this lovely looking airport chart open over here, that is not actually where we're going to start, because the most important pieces of information that you may probably be looking for are of course located in the airport briefing. Alright, no, I'm kidding, nobody ever looks at this, but nonetheless, for the sake of completeness, you should look at this. Look at it while you're on the way to the airport, while your sim is loading, whatever, because in here you do find a lot of very useful information, such as runway usage principles, noise abatement procedures. You may find certain dedicated airport restrictions, or you may find information like which taxiway you are supposed to be vacating the runway on during your landing. All these types of information are available in the airport briefing, and this means that, of course, not only Jeppesen has one of these available, but Lido does as well. Since Lido stands for Lufthansa Integrated Dispatch Operation, that basically means it's German, so obviously it is a little bit more structured than the American competition. Now, we can see that in the Lido AOI, you find basically the same type of information, but in a more structured manner. So you get information on the aerodrome operating hours. That's always how it starts. Then you have things such as the rescue and firefighting category. You got the fuel availability. You got the pavement classification numbers, and so on. Again, it's really worth reading through this because you may find some important information there, especially general restrictions that are not just applicable to only single procedure, such as speed restrictions down here. We can see arrival speed max 250 below 100 in airspaces class Delta, Echo and Golf. Note, not in class Charlie, which you are typically flying through during your arrival. So do you have to reduce to 250 below 100? No, unless your airline requires it, which most airlines do. Now, from here on, let's go ahead and have a look at the chart that probably all of you have been waiting for, and that's the Aerodrome overview chart. Now, this chart contains information such as the different frequencies that are available on the airport. It contains your magnetic variation, yes, very important, and it also happens to contain your airport itself. And that may or may not be very detailed or not so detailed. For complex airports, where not all information fits on the same chart, you will typically find dedicated subdivisions. So for example, if you're looking for the details available in this area over here, then you can have a look at the parking stands east, and this is what it would look like. So as you can see, all this information would not fit on the large chart. But that's why it's called the overview chart. So if you are actually looking for something to use for your taxi, you will find the dedicated taxi chart overview. This contains quite a bit more information, even though I have to say that personally I do prefer to actually use the parking stand charts for taxi when I'm using Jeppesen charts, for the simple fact that the taxiways are a lot clearer on this type of chart. Now, you will find the same type of information in the Lido Airport Ground Chart, AGC, and the Lido chart basically shows you the same kind of info, with the exception that Lido actually manages to put all that detail that I've shown you over the different charts with Jeppesen onto a single chart, with the exception of the actual parking stands. So over here you do have all the taxiway designators on here, so you can actually use this for taxiing, whereas you might need a different chart with the Jeppesen chart. Just like with Jeppesen, you do have the aerodrome parking chart coverages outlined over here as well. So if you have a look into the APC East, for example, then you will also find all that lovely gate information. Now, let's go ahead and have a look at what types of information you may actually be looking for on this ground chart, respectively also on the Jefferson overview charts. So in general, you do want to know how to get to your runway, which intersection you can use on your runway for takeoff. So let's say, for example, you're parking somewhere over here on the Victor stands and runway 25 center is in use. You may not want to taxi all the way to the full length, but you might want to take an intersection. Intersections are typically marked on the Lido chart by these little black flags, and the number next to it tells you how much takeoff runway is available, TORA, takeoff run available, from these intersections respectively. So you can see for 25 center, Lima 9 is an approved intersection for your departure. Next up you got Lima 6, then you have Lima 5, 4, 3, and finally Lima 1, which is the full length. For this reason, you don't have a dedicated flag. Now, if you're looking for the same type of information on the Jefferson chart, you may be lucky to find the approved intersections circled on the overview, but you will not find any numbers on here. With Jefferson, you once again have a dedicated chart, and that is the airport info takeoff minimum chart. So on that one, you will find this type of information. So we go down, find our departure runway, 25 center, and then you can see over here Lima 9, Lima 6, Lima 5, and the respective distances in both feet and meters. Oh yes, they are American. You do see that. You do find some additional information over here as well, such as, for example, which lighting is installed on those runways. So there's that available as well, together with the takeoff minima, which might be interesting for you if you're doing low visibility operations. And you can see over here for both runway 7 center and right, 18 and 25 left and center, the general minimum is 125 meters RVR, provided that all the different lights are operative. And if some lights go out, then you can find different tables down here. So you'd have to compare the NOTAM with the chart in order to find your respective takeoff minimum. Now, let's go back to the Lido chart for a moment. The takeoff minimum is obviously not included in here. In Lido, you'll find it in the AOI typically. Now, what you will notice is that with all of those providers, you may find dedicated subdivisions of charts for specific aircraft type. For example, if you're flying an A340-600 or 777-300ER or a lovely Airbus A350, then you might prefer to use this chart instead. Now, what's the difference? Basically, it outlines some taxiways that you're not allowed to use. You will usually find a legend on those charts, and over here you can see, for example, which taxiways are prohibited and where taxi guidance may be prohibited and so on. So, for example, you're not allowed to use Lima 19 over here or November 14. So there's that available on different charts. The same is also the case with Jefferson, where you have, for example, restrictions for the A340, 50 and 777 right down here. Now, this is the basic types of info that you're looking for on a chart like this. There is one more, and that's the hotspots you have available on the different airports. And you will see that you've got hotspots marked down here or down here in those black circles on the Lido chart, whereas Jefferson is actually using colored circles, and they actually have those on all the different charts. So for example, over here on the overview chart, you will find those hotspots listed down here as well. You will always find some sort of guidance on what the hotspots are about. For example, you've got this huge box over here, and then it tells you explicit clearance required for crossing runway 07 center, 25 center, and most importantly, stop at the Cat 2 and 3 holding points. And you will find the same type of information on the Lido chart as well. On here it's just plain text because, well, Germans do tend to read the entire chart. Ha, ha, ha. Okay, so down here it says explicit clearance required for crossing 07 center, 25 center, and stop at the Cat 2 and 3 holding positions. Now, that is the general information you want to gather from those ground charts. And that's really all there is to it. However, it may disappoint you to hear that in the real world, those are basically not used. They do provide for some interesting overview, and yes, the intersections are interesting, but in the real world, airlines will most commonly be using moving maps. And while some add-ons have the ability to spawn your position in an overlay onto those ground charts here, the reality is that there are dedicated charts available in the real world, and unfortunately we do not have any of them available for the Aerodrome moving maps in the Lido charts from Flight Sim 2024. They are available in the real world, but it looks like Microsoft has not purchased that part of the charts, but we do have them available in the Navigraph set. So how do you access them? On any of the en route charts, just zoom in on the airport, and then they will eventually show up. And this is basically the type of charts that you would be using to taxi your aircraft. This just provides a little bit more level of detail, especially if you zoom further in, you get more level of detail. If you zoom a little bit further out, you might only get the most important level of detail, but this just is much easier to use, especially since those charts can be referenced onto your aircraft's actual heading. So this is what we would normally be using. Again, only available in Navigraph, not available in the Lido equivalent in FS 2024. Now, from here on, we have one more type of chart that is really worth mentioning, and that is the airport facility chart. That one is only available in Lido and unfortunately not available in JPEG at all. And this really provides you with an excellent overview. So over here, not only you have a terrain relief chart and the minimum sector altitudes also drawn onto the charts, but you also get a lot of additional information. So apart from the frequencies on the top right and the runway information on the bottom right, you will find all types of useful information if you want to get yourself a quick overview of the airport. Let's say you're in the en route environment and you want to quickly find out about an airport. Then you just take this one, you zoom in, and you can see immediately, okay, runway 25 left has a category 3 ILS with a minimum of 75 meters RVR. It's using this frequency, which is associated to this Morse code. And it also tells you the final approach fix, and it will tell you where you can do your distance altitude check. And that's really, really useful. It also tells you immediately it's a 3-degree glide slope, which is rather good information, especially when you're looking for something in the en route environment, looking for an alternate airport. And it also tells you which SIDs and stars are available. So for example, looking over here, we can see that there is a SID available going to the Taunus VOR. There's one going to Uboka, which is in this direction here. And then you also have, for example, arrival information such as Roles, Unoko. You see all the holdings that are available in the area and associated with the airport. So really, really useful stuff. That's really a useful chart. Unfortunately, there is no equivalent with JPEG. However, JPEG, going to the reference tab over here, does provide a different type of overview where you get a nice little picture of the airport, which honestly, yes, it does tell you the MSA, but if I'm completely honest, this is something where I personally have to admit that I don't really see the use case. Yes, for some airports that have problematic terrain, this is rather useful. For example, Madeira or Split, but well, you now know that it exists. I don't think I ever used this, really. So that's our overview of the airport charts. Let me know your feedback in the comments underneath the video. I'm really looking forward to this, and let me know what specific types of information you would like me to include in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. As always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe. And if you really like what I'm doing on these videos, be sure to leave a little appreciation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again on the next part.